Dear brothers and sisters, 18th century British philosopher David Hume, well known for causality, and he says, what is the link between the cause and the effect? This particular person never believed in the historicity of Christianity or never believed in Jesus Christ. This particular friend of David Hume, name is unknown, he was asking David Hume, where are you hurrying right now? To reply, this particular friend, he says, to hear George Whitefield preach in London, and therefore I am going there. The friend was so much surprised to hear this, that this man does not believe in God, and he is going to listen to someone who is going to believe in God. Then he asked this question, you don't believe what Whitefield preaches, do you? Then in reply he says, no, I don't believe anything what he says, but he does believe, and therefore I want to see what he is actually believing in. Dear friends, when we have strong convictions, as it is said in today's introduction, conviction versus compromise. When we have strong conviction in our own lives, especially rooted in Christian faith, we live a life which is unlike the world lives its own life. We live a life where we are convinced of so many things, no matter whether it is good or bad. No matter we face suffering on the way, we are convinced that this is what God wants me to do in this particular instance of my life. And if we are given into this counter virtue of compromise, we will be living a life of the world. Dear friends, we have two things before us. A Christian conviction to be lived where one got to embrace suffering on the way and be satisfied embracing it. And on the other hand, we have misguided compromise. This is what happened in today's gospel. Jesus was convinced that he is coming from the Father and he has got this mission to fulfill, and therefore he was holding on to this particular conviction and lived his life. And when he was fulfilling his own God's will in his own life, he had to face suffering and even death. And he foresaw what would happen to him. He got to embrace the death in order to fulfill God's will. Looking at this particular person filled with conviction, the adversaries of Jesus Christ, says all those things which are mentioned in first reading. In the first reading, we see there is this particular man who is convinced of something and he is not given into misguided compromise. Let us see what this particular man is going to do. Let us inflict pain and suffering on this particular man and see whether he will stand for his own words, what he has said. And therefore, they come to know at the end that this is the man who we have been waiting for. Dear friends, in our own lives too, we have made a lot of promises when it comes to our own family. When the marriage was about to take place, we have been prepared, and during the sacrament of marriage, we have vowed before God, a covenant before God, that we both will be sticking on to each other no matter suffering comes on our way or happiness comes on our way. Am I living this conviction in my own life? Or I could be a religious sister or a brother. Do I live this life of conviction in my own life? This also applies to me. I, as a Jesuit, I have vowed 3 particular things before God: poverty, chastity, and obedience. Am I true to this particular thing? And I ask this myself today. Or do I give in to compromises and live a life that is of worldly? Dear friends, Saint Pope John Paul II has this to say for us today. He mentions in his book, Crossing the Threshold of Hope, on page number 218, he says, the power of Christ's cross and resurrection is greater than any evil which man could or should fear. We are not supposed to be afraid of the evil in the world. Rather, we should be afraid of the Christ who died on the cross and was resurrected. Dear friends, Jesus died for us, Jesus resurrected for us. More than us, let us say that Jesus died for me, Jesus resurrected for me. This is the conviction we got to carry forward, and not the compromises of the world, which promises many things and does not fulfill anything. Let this be our prayer today, that we live a life of Christian conviction rather than compromises.